Hello, I'm Jennifer from Ida Public Library and welcome to Kombucha 101. In this tutorial, I'll teach you how to brew your own kombucha at home for just pennies a week. So kombucha is a fermented tea that's been around for thousands of years, and it's been touted for its probiotic properties. I got into it a few years ago because I was having a lot of digestive issues and somebody recommended I try it, and I did, and I was hooked. I also love it because it's carbonated, it's naturally carbonated, and I love anything with bubbles in it. So I've been drinking it for many years, and I was buying it from the store, and that got to be really expensive. Like a 12-ounce bottle is like $3, so I decided to figure out how to make my own. So I've been brewing it at home for many years, and I'm going to teach you how to do it today too. So let's talk about what kombucha is first. Kombucha is a tea. You usually use black or green tea, and it's got sugar in it. You usually start with white sugar, but eventually you can use honey or other natural sweeteners to add the sugar. And the sugar is important because it feeds the SCOBY. So let me show you what a SCOBY is. So here I've got a big gallon of kombucha that I'm brewing. You brew it for a whole week, so it's not ready to bottle yet, but I do have some that I'll bottle later for you. So anyway, SCOBY. So a SCOBY stands for a symbiotic combination of yeast and bacteria. So that's what gives this tea its fermented quality. So there is living organism in here. You might be able to see it at the top here. So when you're brewing it, you cover it with a breathable top so that it keeps out bugs and other nasties, but it can still breathe because it needs the oxygen. So I use a coffee filter, and I like the natural brown ones, not the ones that have been bleached. And I just use a rubber band to tie it on. So I've washed my hands, and so I can show you this SCOBY. My SCOBY is huge because I've been brewing with it for years. So it's a big, kind of creepy looking rubbery mess of goo. It's got many layers because every time you brew, you kind of make another SCOBY. But this is what gives the kombucha its flavor, its fermentation. It makes kombucha. So you need one of these. Now there are many ways you can get these, and as you can see, actually, I could give many people a part of this. You can kind of peel off a piece here. I can do it right now. So, and this would be viable on its own. So you can get a SCOBY from someone that brews their own tea. You can also order them online, freeze-dried, and you can also make your own SCOBY from a bottle of pre-made kombucha. So to get started, you have to gather your ingredients, and you want to start with tea. So you can use loose tea or you can use bagged tea, but it needs to be black tea to start and nothing with any kind of flavor. So just a good old black tea. Eventually you can use green tea, but to start, people recommend using black tea. So I use this like Newman's Own. It's very reasonable and it's organic. I just happen to have bagged tea right now. So you need the bagged tea to start. You also need something to brew in. So I'm going to do just a small batch right here. So I've just got like a mason jar. That will work. You need sugar. Just plain old white sugar works fine. And then you need something also to test the temperature of. So I honestly use a meat thermometer. It works just fine, but you have to be really careful with the temperature because you don't want to kill your SCOBY if your tea is too hot. So the first thing we're going to do is make some tea. Okay, one thing I failed to mention is that you also need something to brew in that's going to be heat safe. So that's why I like to use these Pyrex measuring cups, because you don't want to brew in something that's going to melt. And glass really is the best receptacle for kombucha. It's because it's not reactive. It's non-reactive. It's the word I'm looking for. So first we're going to take our hot water here, and I'm just making a small batch. You got to look how much water. Just 2 or 3 cups. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to put 2 cups of hot water in here. And then I'm going to take my sugar, and I need just a 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm going to add that in. And if this was actually hot, it's not.
but it was hot. You could see the sugar kind of melt in. But you want to mix in the sugar. It's good to use wood. Again, you don't want to use metal. It's non-reactive. So you mix that sugar up, and then you're going to add your tea. And for this small batch, you just need 2 tea bags, and you're just going to let it sit in there and brew for at least 10 minutes. And now I know it seems like it's really kind of like, ooh, sugar in this tea, but really the sugar is there to feed the SCOBY and create the fermentation. So a lot of that sugar is going to get eaten away, and it won't end up so sweet. So it's been 10 minutes and my tea's done brewing here. You can leave it longer too. Like sometimes I go and do other things. I'm going to take my tea bags out here. Usually it's a little darker, but I actually use hot water. Again, magic of television, right? So I'm going to take my tea I made and I'm going to pour it into my ball jar here. Just quart size. And I like my tea to be a little less sweet, so I'm actually going to add more water to this, so another cup of water. And also, if you use cold water, it'll cool this tea down because we want it to be less than 80 degrees when we add the SCOBY. So there's my cup of water, and now let me take the temperature. And it is just a little bit less than 80 degrees, so I'm good to go. So then what I would do, actually, I reserve some tea for my last batch, and you add that on top. That also helps the fermentation process. So if you don't have a last batch, well, actually, when you get a SCOBY, like they'll give you some tea with it. Or if you're making it from a new bottle of kombucha from the store, you can use. They'll give you directions how to do that too. Anyway, so I'm going to pour some of that tea in. And yeah, and this is what it looks like when it's done. It's much brighter and more yellow. And then I'm going to take and put my SCOBY in there. So this is my SCOBY farm, as I call it. It's a whole bunch of SCOBYs that I've been just keeping over time. So I'll take this one on top and I'll add it to the top of the jar. And like I said before, and you know the SCOBY's alive when it's floating like that. That's what you want. Sometimes when you buy like a freeze-dried, like store-bought SCOBY, it'll take a while for that to happen. And then I want to cover it up because I want to keep bugs, bacteria, any other thing that we don't want to be in there. We just want the good yeast and the good bacteria to be in there. And then you can cover it with, like I said, I use a coffee filter and a rubber band, and let it sit for a week. And that's when the fermentation happens. And you also want to make sure that it ferments enough that the pH is at a good level for you to drink it. I don't remember what that is, so I'm going to have to look that up. So I'll be back with you in a minute when I look that up. Okay, I looked it up. You want your tea to be at a pH of 3.6 or below. And a lot of times if you buy a kombucha making kit, they'll give you these little strips you can test, or you can have a pH meter like I have, but honestly, I don't use mine anymore. You can just tell by the way it looks and smells that it's ready to go. And it should taste good and it should smell good when it's ready to go. So after this has been sitting on the counter out of the sun for a week, you can drink it just like this. Now, I like mine to be more carbonated. Like you'll notice, like even if you just drink it after a week, it'll be bubbly, but I like it more carbonated and I like to add a little flavor. So after mine's been sitting for a week, I will bottle it. And so I'll show you how to do that next. So now my kombucha's been sitting for a week and it's ready to bottle. So remember, just like I started with before, I started with some extra tea from my last batch. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to take your SCOBY out. And again, always wash your hands when we do this. Oh, I can't get the SCOBY out. There we go. Put the SCOBY in there and then reserve some of the tea. For a small batch, it's just 1/4 of a cup. So I'll put that aside. And then I'm going to bottle. And you know what? I forgot something really important on my table here. I forgot my funnel. So wait a minute before I get started. Okay, back with my funnel and my swing top bottle. You want to bottle in something that is sealable. That's the only way you're going to get the carbonation. I was I considered using old kombucha bottles, but they don't really seal that well. So these are, you can buy these cheaply online, but also, you know what? My stepson was really big into root beer that sometimes comes in these bottles. So I would buy him these and then keep the bottles. And these are really ideal for kombucha brewing. So what you're gonna do is, I like to flavor mine, I said, and also, this is another way to create more carbonation, is to add a little bit of lemon juice and ginger juice. So I use organic because I have found that I tried to use just like one of those like lemons, you know, filled with lemon juice, plastic lemons, and the resulting kombucha was horrible. It was really bad. So I splurge on the organic, and you just need a tablespoon per bottle. So it takes me a long time to go through a bottle like this. So you shake it up, add just 1 tablespoon into the bottle here. Oh, and I spilled, which I always do. Nothing new. And then I like to use ginger juice, same thing, organic. This is expensive too, but you only use a little bit. So it lasts a long time. So I add that first to the bottle. Let's see if I can do it without spilling. Success. Great. And then I'm going to fill up this. And if this had actually been sitting longer, it'll be bubbly when you're filling up the bottle. And you want to fill it up till maybe there's like almost to the top. You got to leave a little space for some air, inch, half an inch. No more than that, and then you're going to close it up. And you're going to leave it somewhere. I like to put mine in my closet, in my pantry closet, for 3 days. And during that 3 days, then you're going to get that carbonation. You don't want to leave it longer than that. That's when trouble happens. I've actually had it happen. I've had bottles explode because they get so much pressure. So after 3 days, you put this in the fridge, and it's ready to drink, and that's it. So it's a pretty simple process. It takes some time, but I don't know, I'm obsessed, and it's worth it to me to take the time each week to brew this tea. The last thing I want to talk about is cleanliness and cleaning, and honestly, this kombucha is very forgiving. If you've made beer, you have to be so utterly careful about your bottles and how clean they are, and everything that touches the kombucha or the beer. And it's not necessarily that way. I mean, I take pride in cleaning everything very well, and I use a bottle brush to clean these, but just good old soap and water. And if you're concerned, like a little rinse of vinegar works too. But if you keep things clean, it's going to be fine. Last thing too is if you ever like get a bottle of kombucha and you've spent this, I know it sucks, but you spent all this time and you brewed this tea, and you open it and it smells weird, just throw it out because something went wrong. Sometimes that happens. It very rarely happens, but it does. And the same with before you bottle it. If your tea smells funny, pitch it and start again. If you like a SCOBY and you live in the greater Belvedere, Rockford area, let me know. I have some and I can get you one. If you have questions, please leave them for me. I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you for this, and follow Ida Public Library for more engaging online activities.